The massive Valaxian warship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. High Admiral Nix stood on the command deck, all four of her bioluminescent eyes fixed on the holographic display showing humanity's homeworld. The vessel's quantum sensors swept across the solar system, cataloging what appeared to be primitive fusion reactors and basic solar collection arrays. "Curious," she muttered, gesturing with one of her upper arms to expand the sensor readout. "Their energy signature is remarkably inefficient. Are we certain these are the humans who have repelled 3 other expansion fleets?" Her second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vex, pulled up the intelligence reports. "The reports appear to be greatly exaggerated, High Admiral. Their technology seems barely beyond development stage 3. They're still using nuclear fusion for primary power generation." Nix's lower eyes narrowed as she studied Earth's orbital infrastructure. Hundreds of satellites cluttered the space around the planet, most of them using simple solar panels for power. Their space stations were equally unimpressive, rotating habitats that relied on centrifugal force for artificial gravity. Even their most advanced warships appeared to use basic ion engines. "Send the standard greeting package," she ordered. "Let's see how they respond to a proper civilization." The message burst forth from the Valaxian flagship, a complex quantum transmission that would demonstrate their technological superiority while offering humanity a chance to surrender and join the collective. Nix expected the humans would need several hours to even decode the basics of their communication. The response came less than 30 seconds later. "High Admiral," Vex called out, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting colors in surprise. They'd not only decoded our message, but responded in perfect collective standard. A human face appeared on the main display. An older female with graying hair and the insignia of what appeared to be their unified defense force. "Greetings, High Admiral Nix. I am General Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition. We appreciate your offer, but must respectfully decline integration into your collective at this time." Nix's bioluminescence flickered in amusement. The humans' pronunciation was flawless, yet their orbital platforms still used radio waves for communication. The contradiction was intriguing. "General Chen," Nix responded, "surely you understand that resistance would be futile. Our sensors indicate your technology is several generations behind a collective standard. We offer peaceful integration." "We understand completely," Chen replied with what appeared to be a diplomatic smile. "However, we prefer to maintain our independence. Perhaps we could interest you in a trade agreement instead." Nix gestured to her tactical officer, who had been analyzing Earth's defensive capabilities. The report confirmed her initial assessment. Their weapons were primarily based on kinetic projectiles and nuclear warheads. Primitive, by any measure. "I'm afraid we must insist," Nix said. "The collective has determined that Earth's strategic position is too valuable to leave in underdeveloped hands. We will begin integration procedures in 12 of your hours." Chen's expression remained unchanged. "That would be unwise, High Admiral. We may not appear impressive by your standards, but we are capable of defending ourselves. With fusion weapons and chemical rockets." Nix couldn't keep the derision from her voice. "General, please. We've observed your entire infrastructure. Your most advanced facilities are still using technology we mastered 3 centuries ago." "Perhaps," Chen replied. "Though I wonder, have you actually observed our entire infrastructure, or merely what's visible to quantum scanning?" The question gave Nix pause, but only briefly. It was a common tactic among lesser species, trying to bluff their way out of integration. Her sensors could detect subatomic particles across light years. There was nowhere humanity could hide significant technology. "You have 12 hours to begin surrender procedures," Nix stated firmly. "After that, we will commence forced integration protocols." Chen nodded, almost as if she had expected this response. "Then we will prepare accordingly." Chen out. As the transmission ended, Nix turned to her tactical staff. "Begin full spectrum analysis of their defensive capabilities. I want to know everything about their military response options, no matter how primitive. The next 10 hours were filled with detailed scans and data analysis. The Valaxians observed as Earth's military forces mobilized, ships taking up defensive positions, ground-based missile systems coming online, orbital platforms reorienting themselves. It all seemed remarkably straightforward. Almost too straightforward. High Admiral, Vex reported, we're detecting no quantum signatures, no zero-point energy emissions, not even basic antimatter production. Their entire civilization appears to run on fusion power and solar collection. Nyx studied the tactical display, something nagging at the edges of her consciousness. The humans were deploying their forces in textbook defensive patterns, patterns that would have been effective against enemies of similar technology levels, but were virtually useless against Valaxian quantum weaponry. Launch probe satellites, she ordered. Full coverage of their orbital sphere. I want continuous monitoring of all electromagnetic and quantum frequencies. The probes deployed in a perfect geometric pattern, their crystalline sensors extending invisible tendrils of observation throughout Earth's vicinity. Everything they reported confirmed what the Valaxians already knew. Humanity was using woefully outdated technology. Yet somehow, they seemed entirely untroubled by this fact. As the 12-hour deadline approached, Nyx received another transmission request from General Chen. The humans' calm demeanor remained unchanged. Final chance, High Admiral. Withdraw your forces, and we can discuss peaceful cooperation. Nyx's bioluminescence pulsed with mild irritation. General, we have spent the last 10 hours analyzing every aspect of your civilization's technological capabilities. You cannot hope to resist. Chen's smile took on an odd quality, something that Nyx's synapsychology training suggested might be amusement. 10 hours studying what you can see, High Admiral. But tell me, have you ever wondered why a species that can apparently only manage fusion power was able to defeat 3 previous expansion fleets? Before Nyx could respond, Chen ended the transmission. The deadline expired, and the Valaxian fleet prepared to begin their integration protocols, their crystalline ships arranging themselves in perfect attack formation. They were so focused on what their quantum sensors could detect, they never stopped to consider what they might be missing, or why humanity's apparently primitive technology seemed just a little too primitive to be believable. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a facility that didn't appear on any public records, Dr. Maya Patel watched streams of data flow across her quantum displays. The Valaxian fleet hung in high orbit, their crystalline ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, exactly as predicted. Status of the resonance field, she asked, her eyes never leaving the calculations. Her assistant, Dr. James Wilson, consulted his own displays. Dark matter concentration holding steady at 3 parts per billion. The Valaxians' quantum sensors are passing right through it. They're not even looking for these frequencies. Maya allowed herself a small smile. The enemy's technological arrogance was working in their favor. The Valaxians were so convinced of their quantum sensing superiority that they never bothered to look for alternative detection methods. Above them, the first phase of humanity's defense had begun. High Admiral Nyx watched with growing frustration as another barrage of Earth's missiles detonated harmlessly against her fleet's quantum shields. The primitives had been launching continuous attacks for the past 6 hours, using what appeared to be fusion-powered propulsion systems guided by basic computer systems. This is becoming tedious, Sub-Commander Vex observed. Their targeting systems seem barely capable of basic trajectory calculations. Half their missiles aren't even reaching our outer defense perimeter. Nyx's bioluminescence flickered in agreement, but something about the human attacks bothered her. Their missiles followed predictable paths, yet their trajectories seemed to create odd patterns in space, almost like. She dismissed the thought. Their sensors would have detected any attempt at sophisticated spatial manipulation. Begin the second phase of integration, she ordered. Target their primary military installations. The Valaxian fleet's quantum weapons powered up, their crystalline hulls channeling enormous energies. But before they could fire, another wave of human missiles approached. "High Admiral," her tactical officer called out, "the humans appear to be targeting the space between our ships now. Their missiles are detonating in empty zones." "Desperation," Vex suggested. "Their targeting systems must be deteriorating under combat stress." In her hidden facility, Maya Patel watched the failed missile attacks with intense concentration. Each detonation released precisely calculated amounts of exotic particles, particles that the Valaxians' quantum sensors registered as simple background radiation. Dark matter saturation reaching critical threshold in sectors 7 through 12, Wilson reported. "The resonance field is beginning to self-sustain." Maya nodded. "Send word to General Chen. Tell her we're ready for Phase 3. On the surface, Earth's military forces continued their apparently futile resistance. Missile launches from every continent filled space with explosions that seemed to accomplish nothing. The Valaxians observed this display of ineffectiveness with growing confidence. They've expended nearly 30% of their visible missile stockpile, Vex reported to Nix. "Shall we offer them another chance to surrender before we begin planetary pacification?" Nix considered this as she studied the tactical displays. The humans' resistance had been persistent but ultimately ineffective. Their missiles hadn't even scratched the quantum shielding of a single Valaxian vessel. "Something isn't right," she muttered, more to herself than her subordinate. "Their attacks are too consistent in their inconsistency." She expanded the tactical display, tracking the patterns of human missile detonations over the past 6 hours. Each explosion had occurred at least 2 kilometers from any Valaxian ship, a margin of error that seemed too precise to be accidental. "Run a full spectrum analysis of the detonation sites," she ordered. "I want to know if they're trying to achieve some secondary effect we haven't considered." The analysis began, Valaxian computers processing vast amounts of data through their quantum cores. They detected nothing unusual, just the expected radiation from fusion warheads and the lingering electromagnetic interference that Primitive's weapons always produced. In the Himalayan facility, Maya and her team watched as the Valaxians conducted their analysis. The quantum sensors swept through the detonation zones again and again, finding exactly what they expected to find, and missing everything that mattered. "They're still looking for quantum effects," Wilson observed. "Their entire sensor suite is calibrated for quantum-level detection. They literally cannot see what we're doing." Maya pulled up a different set of readings, ones that showed the true state of space around the Valaxian fleet. The failed missile attacks had been seeding a complex network of dark matter filaments, creating a 3-dimensional web that was slowly but surely altering the fundamental properties of space itself. "Humanity's greatest advantage," she mused, "is that our enemies always assume they know our limitations." General Chen's voice came through their quantum-encrypted communication channel. "Dr. Patel, the Valaxians are preparing another strike on our surface installations. Are we ready?" Maya checked her calculations one final time. The dark matter web was nearly complete, its invisible strands weaving between the Valaxian ships like an ethereal spider's web. The enemy's perfect formation had made their work easier. They had arranged themselves into an almost ideal pattern for what was to come. "Ready, General," she confirmed. "Though I should warn you, once we activate the resonance field, there's no going back. The spatial distortions will be significant." "Understood," Chen replied. "Proceed with Phase 3. Let's show our visitors why they should have paid more attention to what they couldn't see." In orbit, High Admiral Nix was about to order another bombardment when her tactical officer noticed something strange. The space between their ships seemed to shimmer slightly, like heat waves rising from hot ground. But that was impossible. They were in vacuum. "High Admiral," Vex called out, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting colors in confusion. "Our quantum sensors are detecting some kind of spatial anomaly, but the readings don't make any sense. It's as if space itself is beginning to resonate." Nix's 4 eyes widened as she finally understood what the humans had been doing. They hadn't been missing their targets at all. They had been hitting exactly what they were aiming for. The Valaxian fleet hung motionless in Earth's orbit as High Admiral Nix tried to comprehend what her sensors were telling her. The space between her ships was changing. The quantum readings made no sense, showing both everything and nothing simultaneously. Status report, she demanded, all four eyes fixed on the shimmering distortions. Unknown spatial anomaly spreading throughout the fleet formation, her science officer reported, crystalline appendages flying over control surfaces. It's as if the space itself is becoming increasingly hostile to quantum states. Nix's bioluminescence pulsed with growing concern. This was impossible. The humans were using fusion weapons and primitive guidance systems. They couldn't possibly be manipulating space at this level. Launch emergency probes, she ordered. Full spectrum analysis. The probes emerged from the Valaxian ships, their crystalline sensors extending into the affected space. Within seconds, 3 of them simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but rather unmade. In the Himalayan facility, Dr. Maya Patel watched the Valaxians' growing confusion with grim satisfaction. They're finally starting to notice, she commented to Wilson. Though they still don't understand what they're seeing. The dark matter web had reached critical density, its invisible filaments now thoroughly intertwined with the quantum fields the Valaxians relied upon. Every attempt they made to probe the anomaly only strengthened its effect. General Chen, Maya called through their secure channel. The reaction is self-sustaining. Ready for Phase 4. On the surface, Earth's military forces launched another wave of missiles. This time, however, something was different. The projectiles moved with impossible precision, weaving through space in patterns that defied normal physics. High Admiral Nix watched in growing horror as the missiles navigated through the distorted space, their trajectories bending in ways that her tactical computers couldn't predict. Yet still, none of them targeted her ships directly. They're hurting us, she realized suddenly. Every detonation, every spatial distortion. They're forcing us to maintain this formation. Impossible, Vex protested, his exoskeleton shifting to stress patterns. Their technology is primitive. Our scans confirmed. Our scans confirmed what they wanted us to see. Nix cut him off. Signal the fleet. Emergency dispersal pattern. Break formation immediately. But as the Valaxian ships attempted to move, they encountered resistance. The space around them had become like thick syrup, responding to their quantum drives in increasingly unpredictable ways. 3 ships in the outer ring attempted to force their way through. Their crystalline hulls began to crack, quantum energy bleeding into the dark matter web. Within moments, they simply unraveled, their molecular bonds dissolving into the altered space. Stop, Nix commanded, her voice carrying across all frequencies. All ships hold position. In the depths of the Himalayan facility, Maya's team worked frantically to stabilize the dark matter reaction. The destruction of the Valaxian ships had released more quantum energy than expected, threatening to destabilize their carefully constructed web. Containment fields at maximum, Wilson reported, his fingers dancing across control surfaces. The reaction is evolving. Maya studied the readings with intense concentration. The interaction between the Valaxians' quantum technology and their dark matter web was creating something new, a hybrid state of space that shouldn't have been possible. General Chen, she called out, we have a situation. The dark matter web is integrating with their quantum fields. The effect is cascading throughout their entire fleet. In orbit, Nix watched helplessly as her mighty fleet became entrapped in humanity's snare. The space between her ships had become a complex lattice of impossible physics, where quantum mechanics and dark matter interactions created a prison more effective than any conventional weapon. Send another probe, she ordered, desperation creeping into her voice. There must be a way to disrupt this effect. The probe launched, its sensors reconfigured to detect any possible weakness in the strange field surrounding them. As it moved through the altered space, its crystalline structure began to resonate with the dark matter web. The probe's final transmission showed something that shook Nyx to her core: mathematical patterns in the space itself, precise arrangements that couldn't possibly be natural. The humans hadn't just been launching missiles. They had been writing equations into the fabric of reality. "High Admiral," her science officer called out, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from Earth's surface. They're not fusion reactions. Across the planet, hidden facilities were powering up. What the Valaxians had dismissed as primitive fusion reactors were revealing their true nature: dark matter containment systems that had been masquerading as less advanced technology." General Chen's voice came through their communications, calm and measured. "I try to warn you, High Admiral. You assumed that because we use fusion power for our civilian infrastructure, it was the limit of our capabilities. A rather dangerous assumption, wouldn't you agree?" Nyx watched as more energy signatures appeared throughout the solar system. Space itself seemed to be turning against her fleet, the laws of physics being rewritten by human technology that her sensors still insisted couldn't possibly exist. "What are you?" she demanded. "We are humanity," Chen replied simply. "And we learned long ago that the best way to survive in a hostile universe is to let your enemies underestimate you. Now then, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Or would you prefer to see what happens when we fully activate our dark matter network?" High Admiral Nyx stood motionless on her command deck, all four eyes fixed on the tactical displays showing her fleet's impossible predicament. The space between her ships had become a maze of dark matter filaments and quantum distortions, creating a prison that defied their most advanced technology. "Show me everything," she ordered, her bioluminescence pulsing with barely contained fury. "Every sensor reading, every scan, every piece of data we've collected since entering this system." The holographic displays expanded, filling the command deck with streams of information. As she studied them with new eyes, the truth became painfully clear. The humans hadn't just fooled their quantum sensors. They had used the Valaxians' own technological arrogance as a weapon against them. Those primitive fusion reactors, their radiation signatures had perfectly masked dark matter manipulation systems. The inefficient solar collectors, actually power transmission arrays operating on principles the Valaxians hadn't even considered. Even the humans' seemingly outdated computer systems had been a carefully crafted deception. In the Himalayan facility, Dr. Maya Patel and her team watched as the Valaxian fleet made increasingly desperate attempts to understand their situation. Each scan, each probe, each analysis only served to strengthen the dark matter web that held them. "They're still trying to solve this with quantum mechanics," Wilson observed, studying the enemy's sensor patterns. "They literally cannot comprehend that there might be fundamental forces they don't understand." Maya nodded, her attention focused on the complex mathematical models showing the interaction between the dark matter web and the Valaxians' quantum fields. "Their entire civilization is built on quantum manipulation. They never needed to look for alternatives." "Dr. Patel," General Chen's voice came through their secure channel. "The Valaxians are attempting to power up their main weapons arrays." "Your assessment?" Maya studied the readings for a moment. "Let them try, General. Their quantum weapons will only accelerate the process we've already begun." In orbit, High Admiral Nyx had come to a similar realization. Every attempt to use their advanced technology only made their situation worse. The humans had turned their greatest strength into their greatest vulnerability. "Send a communication to Earth Command," she ordered, her voice heavy with the weight of impending defeat. "I wish to discuss terms." General Chen's response was immediate, her image appearing on the Valaxian command deck. "A wise decision, High Admiral. Though I'm curious, what changed your mind about our technological capabilities?" Nyx's bioluminescence flickered with a complex mix of emotions. "You never needed our quantum technology, did you? This was all a deception from the beginning." "Not a deception," Chen corrected. "A demonstration. Would you like to see what else we've been hiding?" Before Nyx could respond, new energy signatures began appearing throughout the solar system. What had appeared to be simple asteroid mining operations revealed themselves as massive dark matter reactors. Civilian communications satellites transformed into nodes of a vast energy transmission network. In the Himalayan facility, Maya gave the final command. The dark matter web surrounding the Valaxian fleet began to pulse with previously hidden power. Space itself seemed to twist and fold, creating patterns that made Nex's quantum-trained mind real. What we showed you, Maya's voice joined the conversation, was merely the foundation. Your quantum technology is impressive, High Admiral, but it's only one way to manipulate reality. We humans have always excelled at finding alternatives. The tactical displays showed the true extent of humanity's technological achievement. The dark matter web wasn't just a prison. It was a gateway. Through it, the humans could rewrite the basic rules of physics within defined spaces. Impossible, Vex whispered, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting through patterns of disbelief. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical if we were using quantum mechanics, Maya finished for him. But dark matter operates under different rules. Rules that your sensors were never designed to detect. Nyx watched as her fleet's quantum shields began to resonate with the dark matter field. The effect was beautiful and terrifying. Crystalline lattices of pure energy interweaving with strands of invisible force that shouldn't exist. The 3 expansion fleets that failed to conquer Earth, Chen said quietly. Did you never wonder why no debris was ever found? Why there were no survivors to explain their defeat? The implications hit Nyx like a physical blow. Those fleets hadn't been destroyed. They had been unmade, their very existence erased by forces that the Valaxians hadn't even known to look for. What are your terms? She asked, knowing that her next words would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. General Chen's expression remained neutral, but there was a hint of satisfaction in her voice. First, you're going to watch very carefully as we deactivate our dark matter web. Your scientists will analyze every moment of it. And then, once you understand just how completely we could have destroyed you, we're going to have a very interesting discussion about the future of human-Valaxian relations. In the Himalayan facility, Maya began the shutdown sequence. The dark matter web slowly dissipated, releasing the Valaxian fleet from its impossible prison. But the message had been sent, written in the very fabric of space itself. Humanity was not to be underestimated. 1 month after the failed invasion, High Admiral Nyx stood before the Valaxian High Council, her bioluminescence dimmed with humility. The crystalline chamber was filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders, all gathered to hear her report on the human encounter. They let us see exactly what they wanted us to see, she explained, her 4 eyes fixed on the central display, showing recordings from the Earth engagement. Every primitive fusion reactor, every inefficient solar array, every outdated weapons system. It was all carefully crafted misdirection. The council chambers filled with murmurs as she played back the sensor logs showing the dark matter web's activation. Even now, their best scientists struggled to understand how the humans had accomplished such feat. But why maintain this deception? First speaker Zax demanded, his crystalline form-shifting colors with agitation. If they possessed such advanced technology, why not simply demonstrate it immediately? Dr. Maya Patel's voice answered unexpectedly, making the entire council turn toward a previously unnoticed holographic projection. Because, first speaker, sometimes the most important lesson is learning what you don't know. The human scientist's image stood beside General Chen's, both appearing as guests at this historic session. The council had insisted on their presence, hungry to understand the species that had so thoroughly outmaneuvered them. Your civilization's mastery of quantum mechanics is impressive, Maya continued, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. But it also became your blind spot. You stopped looking for alternatives because you believed you had found the ultimate answer. General Chen stepped forward, her military uniform a stark contrast to the crystalline surroundings. We discovered dark matter manipulation centuries ago, but we also discovered something else, the value of being underestimated. Your empire isn't the first to dismiss us as primitives, and I doubt it will be the last. The recording showed the final moments of the confrontation. The Valaxian fleet trapped in humanity's web of impossible physics, their quantum technology turned against them by forces they hadn't even known to look for. The terms we offered are generous, Chen reminded them. Open diplomatic relations, technological exchange programs, mutual defense agreements. We're not interested in conquest or dominance. We simply want to ensure that no one makes the mistake of underestimating Earth again. In the depths of the Himalayan facility, now revealed as just one of thousands of advanced research centers across Earth, Wilson watched the council proceedings through their quantum-encrypted feed. "Do you think they'll accept the terms?" he asked Maya's remaining projection. "They don't have a choice," she replied. Her attention split between the council chamber and her ongoing experiments. "We demonstrated capabilities they didn't think were possible. Their entire understanding of physics needs to be revised." Back in the council chamber, first speaker Zax raised his crystalline appendages in a gesture of acceptance. "The terms are indeed generous, given the circumstances. But I must ask, how many other secrets does humanity keep behind its facade of primitive technology?" General Chen smiled diplomatically. "First speaker, I hope you understand that if I answered that question, they wouldn't be secrets anymore. Let's just say that dark matter manipulation is merely one of humanity's many interests." High Admiral Nix watched the exchange with new understanding. The humans hadn't just defeated her fleet. They had fundamentally changed how the Valaxian Empire would approach future encounters with seemingly primitive species. "There will be those who don't accept this new reality," she warned. "Some who will see our diplomatic agreement as a sign of weakness." "Of course there will be," Chen agreed. "There are always those who need to learn lessons the hard way. But I suspect the recording of your fleet trapped in our dark matter web will be quite persuasive." Maya's projection nodded. "Besides, we've already begun detecting attempts to scan Earth with more exotic methods than quantum sensors. It's rather amusing. Your scientists are now looking so hard for what we might be hiding that they're missing half of what's right in front of them." The council session concluded with the formal signing of the Earth-Valaxian Accords. As the various parties prepared to depart, first speaker Zax approached the human representatives with one final question. "Those other expansion fleets that disappeared attempting to invade Earth, did you use the same dark matter technology against them?" General Chen exchanged a glance with Maya before responding. "Actually, no. We used something completely different in each case. As I said, dark matter manipulation is just one of our interests." The implications of that statement sent ripples through the Valaxian Empire. Within a year, their entire approach to first contact situations had been redesigned. The arrogance of technological superiority was replaced by careful observation and diplomatic engagement. And on Earth, in countless hidden facilities, humanity continued its work. The dark matter web technology that had trapped the Valaxian fleet was already considered outdated, just one of many tools in their arsenal. As Maya had said, they had many interests. After all, in a universe full of powerful civilizations, sometimes the best defense was letting them believe they had seen all your cards, while keeping entire decks hidden up your sleeve.